back on. How cool is that, guys? Happy New Year. Welcome to the ABC Alpha Book Club. As the title suggests, this show is an online interactive book club for our Alpha community members. That's you. So, my name's Maude Garrett. Joining me as always, we've got Hector Navarro. And we've got the pretty one of the group, Rachel Heine.
Oh, don't even.
They
stayed on you.
Nerdist.com. Oh, that backfired, that compliment, didn't it?
Thank you.
Yeah, you're Hector Navarro now. Stayed on you.
I don't know how to be you. The Flash.
Yeah.
Green Arrow.
That's it?
Yay!
Nailed it.
We are talking about Ready Player One pretty much this whole entire month.
Whoa, we should be talking about that bookmark. That's cool.
Oh, here's a little fun story about this one. This is when I stayed at the Ritz-Carlton in Cancun.
Ooh.
It said, we hope you always remember a world with the hotel.
That's very nice.
It's pretty.
Yeah.
What's everyone's bookmark at home? Let us know.
Let's talk bookmarks for a
I
second.
think that's kind of cool. What's your, there's a virtual bookmark. And what's yours, Hector?
I got this from the Harvard bookstore because
Ooh.
I, not a lot of people know this, attended Harvard and I have a master's degree in law. So none of that's true. No, I just visited the camp. You guys, the camera wasn't on. Maude leaned in like this. like appalled, shocked at that.
What are you doing?
How did that never come up before?
No. I just visited Harvard bookstore over the winter break when I was vacationing with my girlfriend because she lives in Massachusetts, and then we met up with some of her friends. Of course, none of my friends would be there. No. But we went to the Harvard bookstore, a very nice, independently owned bookstore that they're like, down with Amazon, and it's really cool. So I got this.
Do you want to hear the segue of the century?
Yep.
Just like how you have just said that you wanted to be a lawyer, and that is something that you could dream about, I'm sure.
Yeah.
In this book, Ready Player One, you can be anything you want to be as well.
Whoa.
That was an excellent segue.
Oh, I think I strained something trying to get there.
Wow.
But we made it. Look, last time we talked about Ready Player One, we set up the world. You know that it's all about Wade Watts, who is this orphan who lives in the stacks in a very kind of poverty-stricken part of Ohio, if I'm not mistaken. Wasn't it Ohio? No, Oklahoma.
Oklahoma, but they go to
He ends up in
Columbus.
Ohio.
He ends up in Columbus.
Even though I've lived here for 4 years.
It's okay. That's totally fine.
That's better. You're
really
already
good.
better than a
People
lot of
who live
people
here
who
their
yeah.
entire
There's a
life.
musical called Oklahoma, isn't there?
Yes,
Yes.
there is.
And I'm
By the
back.
way, comes
We also found out about the Oasis, which is the virtual reality system that everyone is completely tapped into and addicted to. And in it, there's an Easter hug.
Easter hug.
I
Yes.
think that's really cute.
Every day, every year on Easter, there's a virtual. Everybody hugs each other to celebrate Easter. Yeah.
Easter egg
In the
hunt.
Oasis.
We
Yeah.
gotta do
That was
that.
what I was trying to say. Because basically the creator of the Oasis passed away and he's leaving his vast fortunes to whoever solves the cryptic clues that are hidden throughout this giant virtual universe. Guys, when we had to speak about this last week, we were torn. Rachel, you and I have read this book before. Thrilled about it, loved it the first time.
Yeah.
Reading it again in different circumstances than the first time we read it. Very different book now.
So different. I was just saying before we started how when I first read it, I was so involved with the plot, I think, and the mystery and getting there and solving the clues and
Yeah.
the world and being able to create your own pop culture world and go to the worlds of Star Wars and Star Trek and Harry Potter and everything would be so amazing. And even just all the references to things that we grew up with and loved, all the John Hughes references, there's so many songs and different things that I didn't think that was the crux of the story. I thought the story was driving it, and I still do think that there is a plot without the references as well. They definitely are part of it, but they don't completely rely on it. But everything about Wade and the sort of potentially toxic 80s fanboy sort of character, I'm picking up on a lot more now this time, as well as sort of you get into it more in the second part of this series, but the real threat of living your whole life in a virtual reality.
Yeah.
And they really, in the second part, start to tap into that. And I noticed that the first time around, and I thought that was really interesting. But again, reading it now, where the internet has evolved, what year did this come out, 2011?
Yes, 5 years.
It feels like it's evolved even so much more
Super
since
different.
then. I'm much more active online in a way where I worry about different things. So that has really changed the way that I'm looking at this book. I'm still into it, but I'm not feeling the same way I did the first time I read it.
Speaking of it came out in 2011, one thing that I think that they called something that Ernest Cline maybe predicted. I'm not sure what the internet exactly looked like 5 years ago. I'm sure that things like Twitch were maybe still around, but in a much smaller capacity. But like personal streaming is massive now. It might just be the world that I'm involved in, but it feels like there's more and more
just
like
did it opening the show.
User-generated like content and scheduling and streaming, and a chapter in the book goes into not only do you go into the Oasis and run around and do whatever you want, but you can also hook up like basically a camera to follow you, and people can live as if they're like in a reality TV show. And I thought that was really interesting. And almost a little bit like predicting what the internet would kind of turn into. And for me, going off of what you're saying, Rachel, like this is the first time I'm reading it, but maybe I am judging this book unfairly. I'm really wrestling with it because there's things that I really love about it, but I do feel like the themes are coming to the surface and they're hitting me in the face. And I've kind of decided that depending on how the moderator says, yes, Wade is a little shit, that depending on how the book ends, like I might really disagree with the themes and message of this book. All of the fun surface stuff is still super fun and surface level and, and referencey and really, really cool. But like I'm reading a lot of the themes, and the second section of the book goes more into the dangers of living a virtual existence. But to me, I'm like, too little too late. Like not enough. What is your ultimate message in this? Is this a case where this is a complex Martin Scorsese movie that makes you think that it's fun to be this like messed up moral character, and then at the end of the film it doesn't really tell you one way or the other if you're right or wrong? Is that what this book is?
I honestly feel like right and wrong won't exist soon.
They won't
the
exist.
actual concept of being right and wrong.
And then that means that what is right and wrong other than just perspective? It's just a matter of perspective. It's people's perspectives. So when I'm reading this,
there's illegal and illegal.
Correct.
Yeah. But that's kind of it.
I'm reading this and I'm going, is this perspective?
I don't know about that.
I'm holding on.
There's kindness. I feel like.
Oh, there's kindness
in terms of how the world perceives right and wrong. Yes, I agree with you.
Yeah,
because you can see, perception. It's all about perception. You can be watching the same thing and get entirely different ideas out of it. But I do think that the inherent goodness of kindness and respect, I hope that those continue. But it's still, I honestly don't remember. I remember the plot more than I remember the themes, I think, because I read it so fast too.
I want to mention some of the people have been telling us what their bookmarks are.
Yeah, that's so great.
Java Book Geek Girl says, I have a Doctor Who bookmark I was given for my birthday a few years ago. Thierry F2104 says, my bookmark is the Hogwarts crest I got inside a loot crate.
Cool. Mythbuster always uses a movie ticket as a bookmark, which
movie
is really
ticket,
cool.
yeah. I think Plague Wind said that their bookmark is, crap, I forgot what it was right now. A tarot card, I think is what Plague Wind said, which is interesting, which is really cool. But
cool.
But yeah, so should we talk a little bit about what happens in this section of the book, the second section? Because it opens with something that I really loved, but then I still was like, as it was happening, I was like, this ties exactly into what we described last week, and this sort of like gamer geek guy culture that could be like, it could honestly be dangerous to some, depending on the perspective. And for others, it's like the coolest thing ever that's ever existed, which is why this fictional character created this world and why the author loves this world so much. Because it's like, sure, Ernest Cline, from your perspective, it was a sweet time to be like, it's the coolest.
That's why I loved it when I read this book. It was so cool. And I remember the first time, every reference, if I knew it, I'd be like, just like when I'm talking to someone who I've kind of just met, and I'll drop like a never tell me the odds, and they're like, it's that?
Star Trek. Great.
But it's that kind of connection that you're instantly on level with, which is the basis of the entire relationship that Wade has with Artemis. It's just zinger after zinger, like having all those things in common, instant soulmates. But let's kick it off. Like, we did just get out of the first, I think it was the first collection of the Copper Key, and then it was to go and solve the first gate being inserted into a movie.
I love
and
this.
Having to completely recite not only the dialogue of the movie, but the actions and the inflections, and completely become the actor in the movie, Matthew Broderick.
Of War Games. A question for you guys, which movie do you think you could nail?
Princess
there was-
Bride.
Labyrinth.
You could do Prince. You could be Labyrinth. You would be Jennifer
both
Connelly.
80s movies.
Oh
But
man.
they definitely have
Mine
more
isn't.
for young
Yeah,
girls to
absolutely.
do
Yeah.
in that
Would
as
you
well.
be the Dread Pirate Roberts? Would you be Wesley, or would you
I'd
be
have to be
Buttercup?
Wesley. I'd want to be Wesley. But mind you, no, there's a part in there though.
I'd be Jared.
You'd be Jareth? Great. You'd
There's a
nail
big
it.
chunk where I'd just be watching it.
I do everyone.
Sure.
And I wouldn't be able to say, you mocked me once, never do it again, which would actually break my heart.
You could mouth
I
it.
died that day.
Maybe they. Oh, that's
I
so
even know like the
romantic.
baseball tune of the video
You
game.
wouldn't be able to say, anybody want a peanut? You wouldn't be able to say that. There'd be a bunch of lines you wouldn't be able to say, but that would be fun. Princess Bride would be amazing. Amazing.
What's
Labyrinth would be
yours?
great. Mine it might be the Iron Giant. If I could play as little Hogarth Hughes. Yeah, what do you mean what? It's just the most perfect film ever made. It's just the greatest movie ever
I'm
made.
gonna cry thinking about the Iron Giant.
That's
I
cute.
could act-
The Little
I could
Mermaid
act out
actually for
little-
mine.
Oh yeah,
wait.
Beauty and the
no.
Beast too.
I could act out little moments and little like
have a
acting
lot.
moments in my movie. It would be like, but if you just did
Star
the stupid
Wars.
homework, then you could get moving
Star
ahead of
Wars.
grade and just like me. Do you have any more coffee? Like I could do those bits and
You know,
get
the
the
Taji
bonus
station,
points.
we get the power converters
Yeah.
being bonus points for being a gnarly little
Yes.
whingy.
Yes, bonus
Anyway.
points. I love that they would get bonus points. The person playing the movie for like acting and inflection and little, not just
Yeah.
reciting the lines, but that's so
But
fun.
Like
also-
if you did a Bowie.
Yeah.
Watch out, Sarah.
Yeah, it's like bonus points. Rachel Heine, bonus
That
points,
was
bonus points.
amazing.
That's a really good Bowie.
Thanks. I love
But
it.
you know, from a completely different side of this geek take on it, it's a game he's never played before. This
Sure.
doesn't exist, and he's gone in and he's taken a hot second to kind of figure out how to play it, and then he's mastered it. He's blitzed it. So it's this kind of like any challenge that he steps up to. He's such a geek and knows games so well.
Sounds like a real Mary Sue to me, guys.
It
Free
kind of-
dropping literally into a movie and just everybody loves him and he's so good. It's like a real Mary Sue, this guy.
What do we
This
call him
wig.
instead? Or Mary's
Gary Stu, but I call him a Mary Sue.
Mary
Yeah.
Stew.
Gary
Gary
Stu.
Stu is the male version.
A Gary Stew. Oh, it is. It
Who
exists.
cares? Yeah, it does.
I just rarely see it. Is all from like a.
It's just
Be-
like
no, actually,
every
you probably
hero
see it
character.
all the time.
Yeah,
I just am so
but
not-
Yeah.
no one calls it that.
No one
But no one
actually
walks out of
He's
Die
just a
Hard like,
person. He's a hero.
That
Yeah.
John McClane's a real Gary Stu.
It's-
I'm out of here. Nobody does that.
He was
But-
a police officer.
He definitely, but more by Live Free or Die Hard. He was more of the Gary Stu. When he was
Except
like,
he does
"Jet,
shoot
no
himself
problem."
to get the bad guy in that one, and that's
Yeah,
pretty
but-
cool.
I wouldn't like that.
But
Yeah.
the thing I did like about war games that
Got some great, dude. You got some great answers. Plague Wind says Empire
Oh,
Strikes Back.
Shaun of the Dead's
Raising
good.
Arizona says Wolfskin 75.
Shaun of the Dead?
Samuel Cortez says Fifth Element would be great.
I could do the Fifth Element too,
yeah.
including
I think-
the midlife. Because I would, I sort of always have like
Kevin!
Kevin! Sorry.
Mighty Morphin Power Rangers the movie says Darkman 220. Okay. All right.
Wow!
Thierry
Is this the
says,
one with
I think
Ivan
I could do
Ooze?
Aladdin. Yes, it is.
Wow!
I'm assuming they'd be Tommy. Who's the main character in that? It's probably Tommy,
Tommy,
right? The
yes,
White Ranger,
yes.
probably.
No, he was red in that. I could swear it. Maybe not.
No, he was the White
Stop,
Ranger by then.
Lord, stop.
He definitely was. Mythbusters with you,
that when they had the
Maud
ape?
saying inconceivable. I think so.
Nice. Yes.
God,
I don't
those are
think
fun.
that word means what you think it means.
my dad, just a really super quick aside, when I would watch that when I was a kid, my dad would try to repeat the inconceivable parts or the poison scene
Yes.
and do that back and forth with me, but he would get it completely wrong
Aw.
and would just go, well, you think that I think that you think, and that was it. And I would just be like, yay! It was really cute.
Well, surely I can take the wine that's in front of you. So great.
Where was I? That's right, Australia.
Oh, never going.
All right, see what you're witnessing right now is in essence
The-
what Ready Player
yes.
One is
Yeah.
harnessing and unleshing and letting you experience.
Yes.
But without some friends that you're trying to make with everyone in the book. So
Yeah.
you're kind of like having a moment.
The great thing though is that Artemis later, when they're touching base about
spark.
that challenge, she was like, "Yeah, I wish there would have been an option to play as Ali Sheedy, but you know, I was like,
And that
that's
kind of sums up 80s culture.
Yes.
Like, I
And
wish there
this
was an
man,
option
yeah.
for other types of people to
Still
maybe.
happens
you
now
know, of course.
with
yeah.
games.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Also, that the thing I want to discuss in these 10 chapters of the book that we read, we're introduced to a character that we've heard about, but now we're getting to know Ogden Morrow. So this is James Halliday's best friend. And of course, you get the history, the exposition that happens from this, because you realise Ogden doesn't like the Sixers at all, doesn't like this, you know, the corporation that's going to completely monetize everything, with greed being a huge theme in this book, and I will get to that later. But knowing how this book is going to end, this is obvious to me. But do you care about Ogden Morrow? What are your thoughts on this character?
I'm interested in Ogden Morrow. He's the one who was the partner to
James,
to
yes.
James Halliday,
He helped
still
create
alive. He helped create the program the world.
Gregarious
He's the what's
games.
the name of the guy who was
Wozniak.
Wozniak. He's the Wozniak character
Exactly.
to the Steve Jobs of this world.
Yes.
And to me that automatically makes him more likable, right? He's the Wozniak character is like he's like telling off the news when
Well,
they
it's
go
your
and
introvert
interview
and
him.
your extrovert. The extrovert's going to
Exactly.
be personable and is going to be the one that has, FaceTime and be
Likes
the
to
face of
have
the company.
parties, even though
That's
he's
it.
still reserved. He throws that big party where he dresses up as his wizard and is like the DJ next to R2D2. Like
That's amazing.
all that stuff's super likable and cool.
Yeah.
So I don't know. He's just kind of like a likable side character that I'm more interested in, like when like Will Wheaton gets name dropped with like the world of voting for.
He had to read his own name.
Yeah, he did. But like the voting in the real world versus voting in Oasis, who's in charge of like the Oasis fighting for the users or something. Like it was Will Wheaton and this other guy who I had to look up, who's a proponent of freedom and torrenting information and all that stuff. Which I'm like, that's interesting. I don't necessarily know if I agree with all of that in terms of copyright issues and like we said last week, the accountability of the internet. The accountability of the internet. And I'm interested in that stuff more so than Plaguewind says Morrow reminded me of Gary Gygax. Sure, the guy that created
Yeah.
Dungeons
Yes,
and Dragons.
absolutely, yeah.
Totally, it's all there. And I'm also more interested in the character who's in charge of the Sixers. Of the
Sorrento.
Sorrento. I'm more interested in that character.
So I've cast him in my head. Do we do
Okay.
fan casting now, or shall we wait until the last
Go
episode?
for it.
All right.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. So he's blonde. He's got a button-up suit. Stranger Things, the cop. The cop in Stranger Things.
Oh, wow.
What's his name?
Oh, I like
Yeah.
him.
Yeah.
It's Houston, like something.
Yeah.
But I
yeah.
can just
He's
see
great.
him.
Ooh, that'd be good.
As soon as I read
would
it
be
this
good.
time around, I was like, oh,
Ooh, I
I've
like
cast
that.
him and I like him. And like every word of dialogue, I can picture him saying it brilliantly.
I just picture like everybody so young. Like 20 years old. Everyone looks like they're 25 or something, every character, because it's all digital.
Yeah.
But still, he would be great.
They're
Oh,
all
I didn't
probably
think of it
have
like
that like uncanny valley softness to them a little bit too.
Mm-hmm.
I also like that Ogden. There's a scene when
David Harbour.
when he's doing the interview. Did I say it right? Ogden.
Ogden.
Ogden. Okay. I just had a moment. I was like, is that his name? Where when he's doing the interview and warning basically Wade and Artemis about the Sixers, you get some of the backstory and how he believed that the Oasis was becoming toxic and that people were living their lives in there instead of paying attention to the world around them. So I like that we do have a character that we're getting to know who does have that perspective, that it's not just, oh, we need to save this because it has education and because people can live in there and be whatever they want. We do need accountability. We do need to take care of the world
And
that we live in,
balance.
because there are real life consequences, as we see in these chapters too,
Crazy.
to living in the Oasis. You see Sorrento blow up
Yes.
the stacks.
That whole
It's horrifying.
that whole kind of chapter there is, you think, and this is the thing that happens, the young kids, they're doing so well in this challenge, they think they're invincible. They think they're unstoppable. They know everything. Look how great I am right now. And then having this conversation with a man who's brilliant in his own mind, who's got years of experience, not only in life, but business and, the corporation life.
Sorrento, yeah.
But, in a position of incredible power. And Wade comes in there, and reading his dialogue was cringeworthy for me. Just being like, "Pfft, whatever, man, I don't even
Yeah.
care.
Oh, man,
Wade's
and
a
you're
little
like,
dick.
do you know what's at stake here? How much
Yeah.
money this is and how much power that you could have? How anyone who's running a corporation like that is
Which
straight
comes
up
back
evil.
to the same theme of greed
Yeah.
being so rife here. And he's like, this isn't a game. This is incredible amounts of money. And then offering the three stages, the three offers, basically. The first one turned down because it was pathetic. The second one, $5 million straight out just to tell him what he already knows and nothing else. And then the third one, you no longer have any other option except to live or die. And that, knowing that it wasn't a bluff is finally this escapism and this virtual reality became very fucking real.
Yep.
Because his, you don't really care when his aunt dies. You're like, oh, she was awful anyway. But when it was Mrs. What was her name?
No,
Mrs.
that would have been weird.
I don't know.
Mrs. Not
Mrs.
Morrow.
Sweet Old Lady.
It's Ogden Morrow. Mrs.
Mrs.
Sweet Old
Butterworth.
Lady.
Whatever her name was.
Yeah, when I read that, I was just like, oh. And this is, again, consequences and, accountability for your actions. He's
And
kind
for
of like,
being kind of a shit.
yeah, Yep.
There's
He
a
was
polite way to say
bluffing,
no, yeah.
You're bluffing. Now you've actually cost, and it's not just the lives in that like small area of the
Mrs.
stacks.
Gilmore.
Mrs. Gilmore.
I don't know why I didn't
It's
remember that.
the lives, the domino effects when one topples, the rest topple. I reckon he would have killed hundreds of people
Yeah.
by being a little bit
I don't
arrogant.
think he would have paid him in the end. I think he would have just gotten as much information. I mean, if he'd taken the first offer, maybe. But I think if he'd told him where to find the clue, why would you keep him alive after that?
That's what he was saying as
Yeah.
well. He goes, now that they've blackmailed me, now that they've kind of let me in where no one's really seen before, there's no way I can get out of this alive.
Yeah.
So that's tough. But I think for me, I felt a sense of helplessness that the oldest aged person who's on the list on the scoreboard, I think it's like 21 maybe.
Yeah.
That's it. So it's really this kids versus these evil adults again that we see in a lot of 80s movies.
Yeah.
There you
Good
go.
point.
Yep.
Good point. And a lot
I
of
think we
literature
have
today,
a
so-
guest this week, right?
Surely
cool.
do.
Sweet.
We actually have this really cool thing where if you are an Alpha member and you're watching along, you can actually Skype in and we'll chat to you. Where are you?
Ooh, Jeremy, Darkman220, who's great
Okay.
at fan casting.
Yes.
So
Jeremy Renner would be
Jeremy
great.
Renner for Sorrento.
Jeremy
That's- I
Renner,
would-
gives off the best asshole vibe.
Yeah. I wonder.
Well, we've got a Alpha community member joining us right now from the Alpha community. Tyler Boyce is on. Hey, Tyler.
Oh, nice.
How's it
Hello.
going?
Tyler, I have a feeling if you
It's
were
going
able to
good.
choose any ship to get around in the Oasis, it would be the Normandy? See what I'm doing, guys? I'm geeking
Well,
out
I'd
with a fellow
hope so.
geek.
I mean, I just really love the game and just, I wear this all the time.
It's a cool sweater there.
Yeah.
So we're talking about Ready Player One here on Alpha Book Club. Have you read this book before, or is this your first dive in?
This is my first dive in. I have the book right here, and I got it very recently. I am only up to chapter 2, so there was a little bit of spoilers, but yeah, I really love the book so far. It's just a great read, and it really reminds me of this book I read when I was a teenager in high school called Epic by Connor Caustic. I don't know if you guys have heard of it or not.
I've never
No,
heard
what's
of
the
it.
premise for Epic? That sounds cool.
Yeah, so it's the first in a series of 4 books, and basically it's a very similar situation to Ready Player One. It's set on like the idea is that humanity had to leave Earth for whatever reason. They settled on this new Earth and they decided to ban violence. And so in order for conflict to be resolved, they set up this game like very similar to Oasis, where people could settle their disputes. And it just took over society, just like the real world economy is the in-game economy.
Yep.
You improve your social standing by doing better in the game, and it completely took over. And it's a really interesting story.
Yeah.
we'll have
Mythbuster
to
in the
check
chat
that out.
says that he knows that book as well.
Oh, very
So,
cool.
Yeah,
Awesome.
sounds like we've got to get
It's
it
a
on our
great read.
reading list.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
I kind of like the idea of absolutely no violence and taking out all your negative anger and negative, feelings.
There was a great classic Star Trek episode about that.
I bet
Where
there is.
they would play like, it was from the 60s Star Trek, where they played like a digital war, and instead of actually enacting the war, they would do it through sort of like a computer game, and when massive amounts of people died, they would have to go and voluntarily put themselves into like a gas chamber and kill themselves, because they were like, well, this is what happened. And it was just like a more efficient way of them to live life, which is crazy.
I
And
don't like
Captain
that.
Kirk was like, this is insanity, you
Yeah,
have to stop.
it's-
It was great.
Sounds
It's not
so
that bad in
Still
Epic,
Yeah,
but
okay,
but yeah, it's a little weird. There's a bit of a it kind of trips itself up a little bit, because it's the idea of like, well, if violence is banned, then what do you do if someone acts violently? And like it's a question the book never really answers. But the thing that really kind of drew me from Epic to this book is Epic is like it's a dystopia that presents itself as a utopia, but Ready Player One doesn't even pretend. It just admits, the
Yeah.
world sucks, and this game makes it less sucky. So it's just a really interesting way of looking at it. It's a darker story, but I do like that because it makes it a bit more complex.
Yeah. Tyler, do you think that the world could ever get like that? Do you think this is like a legit prediction of how things are going to be, or do you kind of reject that? Because I honestly don't know. I'm like half and half.
The optimist in me wants to say that it won't get that bad, but it's just like you see what's going on these days with like politics and climate change, like all this stuff that's like mentioned in the book.
Wait,
And it's
climate change isn't real anymore, guys. Didn't you know? Yeah.
Oh my gosh. Oh no.
So yes, ask me a year ago, I wouldn't know if we could get that bad, but now.
I got a question for you,
I
Tyler.
don't think it's that bad yet. I think that's the thing to stress is that it's getting bad, but it's not as bad as it is described in Ready Player One. So there's the opportunity to change, the opportunity to kind of slow the crawl to absolute dystopia. And I think that's kind of the whole reason that there is dystopian fiction, is to show, yes, this is how bad things can get, but it doesn't have to be this way. That's kind of, it's like when
I love that.
it's like when Ray Bradbury wrote his books. He wrote dystopian futurism, but it's it's not like he's saying like, oh yeah, like we're going to burn books and just listen to the little earbuds, or what do you call them in Fahrenheit 451? Shell radios, like that you just stick in your ear. But yeah, he didn't do that to say that, this is absolutely what's going to happen. He's saying this could happen, but it doesn't have to. And if it does happen, we can decide ourselves how we react to that.
There's still time, though. It's not too late.
Yeah, there's hope. Yeah, thanks.
Yeah.
Thanks so much for joining us in Alpha Book Club. That was really, really cool.
Yeah, Tyler, that was great, man. We hope
thanks for having me on.
Yeah, we hope you enjoyed the
Absolutely.
rest of the book. Let us know what you think when you catch up or finish it. And maybe you can even join us again next week and we can just chat about it.
Chat.
Yeah.
At
Yeah,
Maude
that'd be
Garrett,
cool. This
at
is really
Rachel
fun.
Heine,
Okay,
at
great.
Hector is funny.
Thanks, Tyler.
Say a joke.
Thanks.
Every time I say Hector is
Bye,
funny, I
guys.
feel like you have to say a joke.
I have to say a joke? Okay, do it again.
Hector is funny.
That was awesome. Thank you so much.
Did
I
you-
love that.
Did you know that grapes are poisonous to dogs?
Yes, I did. I have 2 dogs. Anyway,
Well, that was, okay.
so I'm sorry, it's such a big statement. Hector is funny. I'm like, is he?
Yeah.
Is he?
No, I'm not. Not
Yeah,
at all.
Hector could
It's
be
ironic.
funny if he had a better audience. Sorry about that one. So getting back to the book, chapters 10 to 20 is what we're focusing on right now, if you do have your books in front of you. And don't forget the chat right there. Have a chat along. Let us know anything. Hector loves to peruse it while I rattle on a lot, and he will read out really cool things that you want to say. So I want to talk about the fact that Parzival is leveling up. He's finally realizing he's got money now. He's got access now, transportation. He can go anywhere, buy cool things. And I kind of feel like part of me goes, wow, this is happening too fast. All of a sudden, he's completely mapped out his life and everything's kind of sorted.
Level
And
99.
he's good with his money. He's signing these contracts like he knows what he's talking about, even though it's his first kind of little access into all of this. And the other part thinks he's been wanting this for 5 years.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He's got it figured out.
He's been
And
planning
it's just
and
a way
dreaming.
to, it's just a way to skip forward of like leveling up in a video
It's the
game.
book
Like,
montage.
It's a book montage, exactly. So I thought that was cool. I liked that dance sequence, the party that they went
Yeah.
to. And as I'm reading it, I really feel like there is an underlying story here that doesn't rely too much on pop culture references. However, this is also Ernest Cline going like, this is everything I've ever wanted to do in my life. That I
Zero
think
gravity
is-
dance
that I
party.
think is cool.
It's like he's in my head.
Every song that he puts there, I'm like, this is just on Ernie's playlist, and I'm pulling them up on YouTube so I can listen along while it's,
You would?
I'm totally doing
Oh,
it.
of course you do.
Have you
I
looked
think
up
it
anything?
enhances it, but
Have you looked up anything while you've been reading?
I did a lot the first time. I've looked up a couple of things this time, but I remember, especially the first time I read it, there were a lot of things outside of the film and TV realm and music that I
Yes.
looked up a lot of. And I agree. I mean, it is about this pop culture. I think the reason I keep saying that is because I read Ernest Cline's second book, which is all. I mean, I feel like there's no called Armada. There are a lot of spaceships in that, and
Yes,
they
pew, pew.
use pop culture to describe them and don't actually ever describe anything. It feels like in that book where it's reliant
I
on
have no
your
idea
knowledge.
what our protagonist in Armada looks like. I have
Yeah,
no idea what he
there's
looks like.
there's no concept of that where this is about that, but there's also a world, there are rules, there's this, everything in there is meticulously planned out. When he goes to find an apartment, there's a reason that he's in Columbus, Ohio, and it's because that's where Holiday, and because Oasis was set up there, and so everyone moves there. All of those little details and the quest and the puzzles, they definitely have a part of that, but you could pick, one of those things or a different it doesn't have to just be that, and I think it's certainly a big chunk of it, but it's not just, oh, I love this, I love this, I love this. There's still that, for me, it's the solving the puzzles and the adventure and how are we going to get to the end too.
Absolutely. I love how it's like no one can figure out a clue and then it all happens.
Yeah.
And then as soon as he gets stuck, and everyone can figure out the second part as well. Everyone's got that straight away. Not one person lasted more than 2 hours going from getting the key to finishing the gate. So it's like, everyone knew that off by heart. There you go. That's so cool. And now again, this clue has stumped at the height of its interest, where people are no longer attending school because getting the egg is again on everyone's peripheral, consuming everyone. How everyone again can't figure this out. And then it's not a priority anymore. I mean, I understand that he's focusing on Artemis at the moment and this relationship that's happening.
That pans out real well, doesn't it?
He got dumped, guys. Little Wade got dumped because she's
good
got
for
her
you.
prize. Because they
were
weren't
never
even
going out.
Yes.
They were never going out.
They weren't even together to begin with. I like Artemis in this respect.
Me
Her
too.
eyes on the prize. You're also rooting for her because she's thought about how she's going to spend the money and she wants to save the world.
And then Wade throws that in her face like, oh yeah, you're such a good person. I'm like, Wade, you're the shittiest guy in the... That's so crappy.
Another thing with this that I don't really understand is they're realizing after the Sixers blow up Wade's house or trailer that there's real problems at the moment and their lives are at stake. So they all band together and it's kind of cool seeing them all. We're meeting Shoto and Daito. Shoto and Daito.
I believe it's,
because it's Daisho when they're together. You're meeting them for the first time and, they're Japanese. So they have very different perspective on everything as well. It's all about honor. It's all about doing things, with honor.
Right, because that was Japanese characters in the 80s. That's right. That's right. Come on.
Honor.
I'm reading this and I'm going, look, man, white dudes have a very specific relationship with Japanese and Asian culture.
Yeah. My favorite is when Keanu Reeves is a samurai. What was that movie again? Ronin 47.
Yes. Oh, I thought you meant the other one where Tom Cruise was a samurai. That's The Last Samurai.
Oh, my bad.
Or many other. But the point is that
Matt Damon.
It's Ernest Cline going like, oh, I'm gonna have some Japanese characters and they're gonna be the most cliched, stereotypical. Like they're just into honor. They team up with Wade to go do the Ultraman missions or whatever it was. I'm going to skip ahead. I have to mention it super quick. They go do this thing where it's that was the name of the series, right? It's Ultraman. It's the big giant guy, and it's
like
Ernest.
Voltron,
It's Ernest Cline like showing us his like knowledge of it. Like, oh, okay, great, yeah, you definitely know about this premise and da 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 da. And at the end of it, like the Japanese characters are like no, please, you should win the prize. You are so good. And he's like, no, I'll let you guys have it. And they're like, oh, thank you,
Oh yeah,
much honor. And
when they first meet as well, it's like.
It's the most like stereotypical, and it just feels very much like a dated way that a character from America would interact with a character from Japan. That seems very dated, tone-deaf, cliched, and it doesn't take into account and again, maybe just because world relations in this world got to a point where, well, how were they the way that white dudes reacted with the rest of the world in the 80s? That's how it is now.
Right.
Like, that's who these other characters around the world internationally, this is what they care about. Like, oh, sure, if you're in Japan, your specialty is of course going to be like kitschy stuff from the 80s because that's what this one dude was into, and then he designed the virtual world. So that really it just bugged me.
Well, he's a gunter. They're gunters.
Sure. Everybody's a gunter, yeah.
So they're like indulging in the 80s culture just like Wade is. But I do understand what you mean with that one. What I don't understand though is that they're realizing that the Sixers are willing to kill them all. And yet they still won't team up.
Sure.
How is it that you have to fight on your own?
They've been doing it for this.
240, well, however, I keep making that number up. It's something, maybe it's that, maybe it's not, but 200, like whatever it is, $1 billion.
Yeah.
So even if it's split 5 ways, everyone's still getting like $50 billion.
I think it's about solving it. I think for them,
But to
especially,
live
they
or
think they're so smart. And they get everything. And also we don't know a lot about the other characters yet, but they all are very solitary people. They clearly spent their they spend their whole lives doing this, and so they don't want to. They want to have the pride. It's a lot of pride to win. They don't want
foolish pride.
There are so many moments in the book where he's like, well, I don't even want to give him a clue because he'll resent me later, and they're so cagey because they have trust issues because at least Wade has been bullied. He doesn't want to let anyone in.
And because they're all anonymous. Like Wade says throughout the thing, like maybe Artemis is a Sixer and she's like working for.
No, she has to remind Wade that she could be a Sixer. Because he's just like, I will tell you my name, I'm going to tell you my bank details, I'll tell you my social, and she's like, he literally, like, it's a really lovely, crystal clear point in the book where he goes, she knows my actual name, something that we should never, especially in the position that they're in currently, should never reveal. And he goes, and I've just realized I know an area of the world where she's from, and that she could be this age. She's like letting me in that maybe it's 19.
And she's like, maybe. And so, she's leading him on in the sense of just like being guarded. She's so smart.
Someone in the chat, Samuel, if I can recall the name, said Artie is a girl with a plan. And I think in these next 10 chapters, I really respect her.
You know what I'm saying? Come on. I don't know the end of the book. I don't know.
Yeah, I'm telling you.
I don't know.
I like to, it reminds me of something I think we've talked about before that we will definitely discuss more once we finally read Harry Potter, is that...
I want to. I never read it.
Never read it.
But I do solemnly swear that I know up to no good.
Aww.
Come on.
Stop high-fiving me! You haven't read Harry Potter, I'm not high-fiving you.
You didn't want high-fiving me? But I always think, gosh, I wish someone would make a TV adaptation of Harry Potter from Hermione's perspective, because every time she's like, these dumb boys, they would be dead if it wasn't for me. And that's how I feel about Artemis, is that she is the true hero of the story, and Wade kind of sucks. And she's the one who knows what she wants to do. She has a good heart. She's not going to let anyone else, get in her way. She's trying to be kind about it. She's not being a jerk or, leading him on for any personal gain or anything like that. She really is having a connection with him, I think.
I know.
But I think if she went to Sorrento, she would not play around like that. Like, she just seems like she has it together.
She wouldn't even answer the email. She didn't.
None of them
She didn't even answer the email because she was smart.
Just saying that if us three...
I agree.
This is a private conversation.
Guys, we would totally go all in.
Yeah. I wouldn't be like, of course, two heads are better than one.
Yeah, we could use each other's info.
I would even do a deal with you guys, like, let's share info, but like, if Maude gets the key, she'll get $200 billion and we'll get each $20 billion. You know what I mean? I'd be like, I'd be fine with that.
It's gonna be good.
I'd be fine with that.
I'd take $1 billion.
I would take $1 billion.
I'm a simple
see
woman.
what I mean?
Yeah, we'd set up a deal.
Pool your resources.
But they
and
don't.
I just think that if they're dying, like,
and
guns are
Artemis,
literally at your virtual heads.
Artemis ends up finding the Jade Key at the end of chapter 19 or 20. Like, she ends up finding
21?
it. I think.
20.
Somewhere
at the
in
end
there.
of 20, I think.
End of 20.
End of 20. She gets it. So what do we think is going to happen for this next chapter, for this next section?
Well, Waves is going to start, drumming on his new six-pack.
Which, by the way, made me so mad that for a half a second they're like, look at how unhealthy it could be to be tapped into game culture or to be tapped into a virtual world. So Wade decided, I'm just going to get super ripped in 2 months. In 2 months? Get out of here, Ernest Cline. That's a terrible
not
message.
How it happens.
Gosh, I was like, oh, he's really going to work.
Otherwise, I would have a 26-pack.
Working on it.
Because we all played Wii Sports, but that's not how it works in real life. Come on.
Do you know how I played Wii Sports by the end of it?
Exactly, right? Yeah, like when the Wii came out, I was doing Zelda like this. I'm just like...
Yeah. Please look at what you're actually doing.
I know what I'm doing. I know exactly what I'm doing. I'll be like, all right, let me slice my sword, let me move around.
Thank God you guys didn't see me play. Anyway, the lightsaber.
Yeah, the lightsaber one.
Yeah.
But did you guys know that the shaker can?
The shaky can?
The shake a can game in Mario Party? I used to always win it.
Yeah, this one? Yeah.
I would win against boys, and I was like, what's wrong with this picture? Alrighty, let's get back to the book. I think that sounds like a great idea. How are we going up for time?
We got
I have no reference.
We got a couple minutes left.
Oh, we only got a couple minutes
Yeah.
left. Oh, then 2 minutes.
We need
I
to
know.
make this a 5-hour show.
We do. We didn't make it just a live read-along show that we just
Yeah.
read the chapters
Where
and
we
just talk about
We
it.
read quietly
With
for
wine.
a chapter and then
Yeah.
we go,
And then, okay. And then we'll just be wine wankers.
people
and it'll
just
be
watch
great.
us quietly reading, getting more and more
You
drunk.
read along. You read along.
Oh, I
and we
have
talk about
one
it.
more thing before we go that someone said. So they said that the pop culture references add to the story, but you don't need it to enjoy it. And I do know that because I gave this book to my, at the time, probably, how old is he now? 16. So 12-year-old brother. He doesn't like to read, which is deeply upsetting. He does like to game.
Okay.
But I read a lot when I was a kid. So
Good.
for years I used to give him books and he didn't want them. And then I gave him this one because I thought, if anything, I think he's going to love this one. And he read it for school and loved it and definitely did not bother Googling any of the references and still really liked it.
Great.
Yeah.
So,
There you go.
Yeah.
Well, we've what have we read up to 20? So if you would like to continue this journey, this adventure, Ready Player 1 and 2 currently. What are you talking about, Maude? Read up to chapter 31 this week, please. Join in. Chapter 31. So finish at chapter 30 so that the next page says 31 on it, ready to go. And then join us back here next week. And then after that, there'll be like one more block of 10 chapters.
Sweet.
And then the book's done, which means we'll need more books to read. So go on, send in your recommendations. You can do that at Nerdist, at Geek and Sundry, or at Join Team Alpha with that hashtag Alpha Book Club. While you're on Twitter, make sure you follow us, lovely people. I'm at Maude Garrett, 2 R's, 2 T's. We've got 8 Rachel Heine. Have you got an underscore in there somewhere?
nope, just
No
at
secret?
Rachel Heine. Heine, not Heine. Yep.
Got one of those too. And Hector is funny.
Yep. I'm just trying to.
Go.
I'm just raising awareness.
Go.
I'm
Hector is
raising
funny.
awareness. Get
Hector-
it? Grapes are poisonous to dogs. I'm raising awareness. But that is not my joke. I stole it. That's a Rhea Butcher joke. She's very, very funny.
She
Rhea
is.
Butcher is
That's
great.
true.
But it's still not funny.
Oh, how
Anyway,
dare
guys.
you? It's very funny.
Stick around. Well, no, you're talking about dogs dying.
It's a dad joke. It's a dad joke.
No, I'll tell you.
I'm talking about
Do
raising
you know what a
awareness.
dad's joke is? A
Yeah,
dad's joke. You
let's
ready,
hear a dad
guys?
joke.
Why does everyone love the mushroom?
Why?
Because he's a fun guy. That's a dad joke. Stick around
You
for
should change your
watch.
Twitter to Maude is funny. That is great.
Thank you. Yes. Then stick around for Watch Your Language and Sidekick with Matt and Mira, and Kamal Ninjani will be hosting.
Oh, that's so good.
That's really cool. He's going to be in the building. Wow. Ooh, we're going to attack that guy for a photo, aren't I? Maybe. Anyway, that was Alpha Book Club. Thank you so much for joining us. Let's keep reading Ready Player One. We're never going to mention the
what that
wrinkle
was.
effect ever again, and raise the roof.
Get a wrinkle on. Bye.
Bye.
Jazz hands.